welcome, Lulu. It's a pleasure to have you tonight to hear. It's a pleasure for me to sitting here to have the chat with you. So now we learned a little bit about you already. Why don't you give us more detail about your background and your career journey? So what are some of the key milestones or decision points that led to your success in the finance industry today? And especially, how did they shape your career path to found the Tupelo Capital?
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here with you, and thank you for the very kind introduction, Suzanne. I learned as much from Suzanne as she learned from me. Absolutely. I think my life is probably a lesson in serendipity and being resilient and flexible, because here I am, having had a wonderful career that I'm so grateful for on Wall Street in managing primarily active equities. And I began as an English lit major at Wellesley and married early, had a child. And when it came time for me to think about careers, I hadn't yet gotten my MBA at Columbia. I really was looking for something I could do. And the lesson I think I pass on to other people is take a look at what you have and leverage that. And don't say, well, I can't get there from here because I don't have much of a base, but look to see what you have and leverage it. And so when it came time for my son to go to school and I could begin to think about a career for myself, I looked in New York Times, things on Wall Street. My husband was a securities lawyer, and there was a listing for a position in a Wall Street firm. It was for a financial editor, and having been a literature major and worked on the Wellesley News, I figured, okay, that's something I can leverage. So I used that entry point to get into a job that was, well, we'll try you and see, because you don't have the MBA, which we require, and once you get your foot in the door, it's much easier. Once they see that you are smart, once you have them wanting to keep you, you have much more leverage to go to the next step. So after the first summer, they said, great, we would love to keep you. And I said, well, I would stay, but I'd like to be on the investment track and not the editorial track. And at that time, you can begin to see how you can use the leverage there. And very quickly, I was able to pick up the analysis, took some courses, and began to pick up industries. And so in a very serendipitous way, I entered Wall Street well before the MBA. And I think what was the milestone for me then was that once I learned about investment, I absolutely loved it. And I think there is nothing more blessed in life than to find something that can be a career, put money on the table, but also something you truly love. And that has really been a blessing. I think for all of us, as you think about what should I do after graduation, the most important thing is do something you absolutely love and you're passionate about. Because if you feel that way about what you do, you will absolutely be good at it. The worst thing is to force feed yourself into something because your parents want you to do it or your friends say you should do it, and you're not passionate about it, you probably won't do so well. So follow your heart, and I think that will be a great way to eventually find a career in life. So again, it's something that happens, and you have to be resilient enough, flexible enough to change paths. I think planning ahead is wonderful. I always set a 5-10-year goal for myself wherever I am, just to kind of test myself at the end of each year. But you can be flexible. If things change, you can change your plan, but it does give you a sense of direction. So you can keep building your leverage points toward that ultimate goal, which for me was, once I learned investment management, I said, I want to have my own firm.
That's amazing. That's good to hear. I think a lot of us are looking to do the same, and we all get a lot of experience in investment management over the summertime. And I guess also wanted to learn, how is your background or heritage, especially as an Asian female, has helped you, or what is your experience going through that route? How has it impacted your career journey?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because during Asian Heritage Week month, I was asked to speak to a number of Asian groups, and it always came up with, how did you succeed even though you were Asian and you were a woman? And I had to say, I succeeded because I am an Asian and I'm a woman. And you have to take what people deem to be disadvantages and turn them into advantages and strengths. Because in Marketing 101, you all learn the trick of the game is differentiation. And if you're in a room with mostly men and you're the only woman and you happen to be half smart, or a group with all white men and you're the Asian, you are going to be remembered. You take a risk because people will remember you if you fail or you succeed. But if you're confident you're going to succeed, you put yourself out there and you allow yourself to be identified with a position, hopefully successful, but they will truly remember you because you were different.
I think that's a really good point. I guess from some of the events in the past year, we noticed still women is a minority in those events, but people really remind you when you go up to speak to them. They remind you're the only female, and in the room, it's all people suited up. You're the only one with dresses. But that's a really good point. Then I guess...
And me just follow up on that is that don't be afraid to move out of the box because when I first started on Wall Street, people say, oh, well, you're a woman, you can follow the cosmetics, or you can follow apparel. It was the women's ghetto in research. And I said, no, I want to follow defense stocks, conglomerate stocks, fertilizer stocks, commodity stocks. I wanted to follow areas that I didn't know because if my ultimate plan was to have my own investment firm, to be a portfolio manager, I wanted to have a breadth of understanding different industries, different economies, currencies, global politics. So you don't narrow yourself. Try to do something that, and again, it adds to the surprise element. Because if you're a woman and you do a great job on the defense stocks, people will remember you.
That's a great point. I think as female, we should really voice up more and ask for more opportunity instead of just do whatever you're being told to do. Thank you. I really appreciate that. We'll pause here for any question from the audience.
That's coming to the left.
Lulu, I'm sure you were told no a bunch of times. Or were you just one of those very fortunate people when you said, I want to do defense stocks? And they said, oh, of course. But how did you deal with the no's? Because I'm sure there were a lot of naysayers as you were working through your career.
I have been lucky that I haven't had too many no's. But when you get a no, there are always ways to go around it. And I find it's much more productive to not do a frontal battle. Just go around it. And value added is very hard to turn down anyone who brings value. And I found that if you are the only woman and you're running a team of men and they resent it, and how do you win them around? You win them professionally and personally by really being value added, not only to the results of the team, which everyone will have factored into their compensation, but at the same time, I make each person that I'm responsible for, make them feel that I'm on their team and I'm rooting for them. It's very important whenever I'm given a new group to run, and I have a one-on-one with each of the senior people, and I really make it very clear I recognize their attributes, what they contribute to the team, and then think together, how can he do better? And how I can be in his corner and helping him. And I think that's very important to align yourself with people who work for you. And sometimes if someone says no to something, an idea of yours, just say, well, you're probably right, but let's give it a little try. Let's just do a little piece of it. I did a series of the Met that is now going to its 20th year, and is considered now the most successful grassroots event at the Met, the Women in the Critical Eye. And I remember when we first started, Emily, who's a wonderful president of the Met, she said, oh, I don't think it's going to fly, Lulu. We have so many women at the Met already. And but it's now become a very, very profitable and a very friend-building operation. So I just told Emily, let's try it. Let's try a little bit and see what happens. And no one will absolutely say no if you say, let's not take too much risk, but let's give it a chance.
How do you find?
Be open to a lot of things. Sometimes it pays. It's so easy and so comfortable to do what you know you can do, but it doesn't stretch you, and you can't aim much higher than that. if you try something that you see someone else doing and it seems incredibly wonderful but also impossible, don't say, I can't do that. He or she is wonderful, but I can't do it. Just imagine yourself in their shoes. And pretty soon you'll realize it's not that hard. Because when I first decided I really wanted to have my own firm, and it was because I really felt only when you have your own firm can you really establish the values that are important to you. And on Wall Street, there are many different firms, many different value sets. And only when you have your own firm, you can really begin to put in, here's what we want to do, here's what we believe in, here's what we do for our clients. And I think if you are running a firm, you have to be more than just a portfolio manager. So I had been working at Equitable. I ran the active equity, then I moved to Jennison, which is one of the largest publicly traded growth equity managers. I took on, again, anytime someone gives me an opportunity, I raise my hand. So I went from being an analyst to being a portfolio manager. Then I learned trading, and then I ran the trading department. Then I ran the marketing department because I was good at clients. And so over time, when they needed a new head of marketing, I raised my hand for that. So that was important, and new business development. And then obviously strategic planning. So over time, I put together all the pieces that I needed to achieve my optimum goal of being a business owner. So don't be afraid to try. And if you grow incrementally, you'll find the pieces fit together very well.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for being here. Throughout your career, how did you think about life design and work-life balance and balancing philanthropy and family and a career? And I think a lot of us have that on our minds.
I found I was able to manage because I really believed in integrating everything. I found that as a very busy professional and having a child at home and a husband who's also busy with his career, that if we integrated things, it worked better than my family versus my career. My family became part of my career. And so that I talked at the dinner table about what I was doing. When my son was very little and I was visiting companies or clients, I would always send him a little souvenir from wherever I was. And at the time when I was converting some of the defense stocks, I sent him a little from General Dynamics, the F-16 fighter. And then when I was running money for Caterpillar's pension, I sent him this really great, neat yellow Caterpillar tractor. So he, instead of having a working mom being a disadvantage for him, it became an advantage because he could tell his friend, oh, mom gave that to me. Or if I sent him the latest cereals from General Mills or postcards from wherever I was, I gave him a bulletin board so he could put the postcards. And when his friends came over to play, he can point to things where my mom was working or where she was traveling. So he really became part of my team. And sometimes you'll be surprised if you're looking at a company, if you kind of share with your family, here's this company I'm really struggling with. They have a great product line, but really miserable management. And it becomes really down to earth for them. They can understand. They all know what miserable people are. They all know what great products are. And then you explain to them the conundrum, this is what I have to figure out. What do you think? So I think if you bring your work to your business, your dinner table, incorporate the family works well together. And if you have to travel, try to plan a family vacation around the travel you have. It works pretty well.
That's actually.
And you have to tell the kids that your work and my husband's work, there'll be ebbs and flows. And there'll be times I'm going to be a terrible mom, you won't see me at all. And there'll be times I'm going to be so around that you can't stand to see me. So they know this is the way my life is, and they take the pluses and minuses.
That's actually a great question that bring us to the next question that we have on the list. Is I was just trying to understand. Now you talk about your own family. I know you work with a lot of family offices. What about other people's family? From your experience, how has those family worked together, or through challenges, through generations? And how are those family maintaining pride and legacy while navigating these challenging opportunities over time?
Family businesses are so important. They're a very, very important part of the growth of our economy. So therefore, it's important to understand how it works. And we have a great practitioner here, one of our loves, Alice Chen. She is, may I out you? Alice is the CEO of 99 Market, which is the largest Asian grocery store chain in the country. And she really, I so admire what Alice has done because it's truly a family-owned business. Her father started it. And when I first met her, I said, Alice, how do you do it? Because in Chinese families, there's all these hierarchies, and women don't always rank at the top. And especially if you're the sister and you got a brother and a father and uncles who are in the business. And I must say, I should have her talk about this, but I'll make a cut at it, and then Alice, feel free to add. The family business that I've been either personally involved with or have watched closely, I always think the most important thing is to have what you would have in a normal business, to have incredible respect and a sense of community to bring the enterprise to success. But in a family-owned business, it's even more important, particularly the respect part. Because if you have a younger member who is elevated to the senior level, you really have to show a lot of respect to the people in your family who are not taking the CEO slot. So it takes a lot of personal time, shows a lot of respect. But the other thing that is hand in hand with that is the sense of community. Companies that have a sense of community and culture do very well. But in a family-owned business, that community is very, very important because it can be actually an advantage versus a disadvantage of having people you know too well. If you play on the pride that the family has in the enterprise, and you say that whatever I do, whatever you do, is all for the benefit of the family, it makes it much more, much simpler to sell what you want to have people move together on. You must never give them the sense that it's all about you, because then you have much more opportunity for rivalry and sibling jealousy. But if it's really for the family and for your kids and my kids, the next generation, we want to build a great company and we're going to do it together. I think that allows you to pull the sense of community to your advantage.
That's very well said. Then I'm also curious, I guess a lot of us, older generation tend to have different view on strategy, or they have different vision on how the company should go. Versus the younger generation, we get exposure to all technologies. We may think there are different routes to expand the business. How do you think the best way to, communicate? What do you see from, the other people? For example, how do they bring out the message? How do they communicate? Are they aligned? Don't run into conflict?
Right. Well, I think in a family business, again, like in any other good business, you have to have increasingly more transparency. And especially now with AI and the speed with which information can be generated, the speed with which data can be manipulated and interpreted, it's very important to be absolutely transparent. Because if you're not, people can find out anyway, and then you will be duplicitous. So it's important to, especially in a family business, for the non-family members, especially, and the family members, to have the numbers very available. Everyone sees what's happening. And then if you make changes because either it's for the benefit of the enterprise or to reward merit, people understand why it's happening. There's no nepotism. And I think as young people begin to sort of question if older people question the newer practices that young people are bringing into the company, if you can show through data and analysis that this really is good for the company, this is how we improve our margins, this is how we reduce the volatility in our commodities we purchase, they can understand with the data that's available to everybody. And there's no longer a pitting of, well, we used to do it this way, and now you have these newfangled ways and they're not going to work. You just let the data speak for itself.
Mm-hmm. That's really good advice. Thank you. The next, I wanted to understand, I guess this is a question a lot of us are interested because students are looking to build a career in investment management. But what do you think of the key distinction between working in a family office versus a large financial institution? And how do people make the decision which one is best suited for their career path?
Well, I think going back to my saying that the speed of information makes family offices and large corporations more similar in that regard, because everything has to be transparent. Everyone knows what's happening. I I think in a family business, there is a lot more time and attention that has to be given to the personal relationships. And actually, intuitively, you say, well, you have to take care of your relatives, make sure they're all happy and properly employed. But actually, I think more time should be spent with the non-family members, because it will come as a surprise to them, and they will actually feel very flattered that the non-family members are given a lot of time from the CEO, that the CEO cares about how the non-family members are doing, what their ambitions are. And it's always been said that if you work in a family business, you have to be 10 times better than the people who are not in the family. And that's really true. You really have this monkey in your back. You have to be 10 times better so that there's no accusations of nepotism. But at the same time, if the leadership, the CEO, is really spending a lot of time developing professionally the non-members of the family, it really proves to all the employees that everyone is working for the benefit of the company, not just for the benefit of the family. And I think when the family members see that, they also really pull together and realize, okay, these people are not family members. Look how hard they're working. They're subsuming their own, sometimes their own advantage for the better of the community. This is something we should do too. So I think good behavior engenders good behavior.
I see.
And then you're saying, how do you know which one? I think if you are deciding whether to work in a family business or in a larger corporation, I think size has always been an issue, but there are many family businesses that are huge. In many ways, Walmart is still a family-run business. There are many Waltons involved, but it's one of the biggest companies in the world. And it's going to be bureaucratic. And you can be in a small company that is family-run, but it remains small. And so you can look at the individual cultures of each company, and I think that's going to be more important than really if it's family-owned or a corporate-owned business. And then try an internship. Get a sense, especially if you're joining a small family business, and especially if it's small, it is going to be, your progress will be dependent on your chemistry with the senior members of the family. And that is the nature of the beast. And even if it's a small company, that's corporate, not a family-owned business, you will be, your assessment will be by the senior members of the corporate enterprise. So it's really a choice between small and big rather than family and corporate. Mm-hmm. And I think having an internship is such an important way to get to know the companies before you decide to commit to working after graduation.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good point. I guess a lot of us historically, we think it's always good to pursue a big corporation. Like I never thought about family office before entering Columbia, but now the more I learn about it, I realize, oh, maybe I'll get better experience working for a smaller family office. You see a holistic view from end to end how you invest versus big corporation, you only see it as small.
Exactly.
Parts of your job description. Yes, thank you for sharing. And we'll pause here for any question related to this topic.
I thank you for being here with us. I was just wondering, from the career that you have described about yourself, how you started from being an editor to being in the investment track and wanting to do from a very early stage your own firm, establishing your own firm. I was wondering whether at any point of time you had doubts about the path that you wanted to take. Maybe settle at one point of time, not be that ambitious, or any other sort of digressions that you may have had in your mind, and how did you overcome that? And
I think it's a really good question, because all of us, if you're from Columbia, you're talented, people will want you to have you on their team. And so in the early days when I was an analyst, I met with many CEOs, and many CEOs would say, Lulu, I'd like to have you work for my company. And when you're an analyst, you're still exploring and deciding what you want to do. And to have a CEO of a Fortune 500 company say, wow, you're really smart, I want you on my team, you want to be my chief of staff, put away all the glamour and all the ego stuff and just say, what do I really like the best? Do I want to wake up in the morning and be a really brilliant corporate chief of staff? Or do I want to be an analyst and then I become money manager and I have my own firm? And so I chose the longer path because I knew that's what I really love to do. And if I were in a big corporate entity, even though I had a fancy title, fancy salary, working for the CEO, would I really be doing what I would love to do? To wake up in the morning and think, gee, listen, I'm going to find a really interesting company today. And so be true to yourself. Don't listen to what is the short-term money. Don't listen to short-term titles or friends. Just listen to yourself. What really excites you? And you won't go wrong.
Hi, Lulu. Welcome. I want to thank you for sharing with us. What I wanted to know is, since you have a non-traditional background, can you help us understand the investment management business is very dynamic, always changing. So I'd like to know, can you share how did you supplement your learning? You cannot learn, we can learn something from Columbia Business School. We can learn something from working for people, but you need to learn fast and you need to learn in between. So what are some best practices and things you've done to supplement your learning and continue to improve over the years?
I think that's a really good question. Actually, it's a good life question. And I think the way we all continue to be productive and to grow is to really foster that sense of curiosity. When I was little, my mother said, when I first learned to talk, she said, you exhaust me. You're always saying, why, Mom, why? And I think that sense of curiosity is really what has allowed me to love the investment world, because it is, as you say, always changing. And that's why it's so interesting. You can never be bored being an investor. You can be a very broadly based investor, being global, or you can be more focused on one geography or one style. I chose to be primarily in the growth style and public equities, but I think if things had broken differently, I could have been just as happy to be in venture capital or private equity. But as long as I can wake up in the morning and I can say, why? Why did this stock do really well, and why did that stock do so badly? And what can I learn from having been in the bad stock, or I give myself a clap in the back for having been in the good stock. But you keep learning, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. And I find also being an investor is such fun, because when you look around, you can do research all 24/7. Wherever I go, wherever I shop, wherever I invest, wherever I talk to someone at a dinner party, I'm always learning something new. And I'm probably the worst dinner party partner you can ever get in a dinner, because I'm always asking why to the guy next to me. And being a woman, I'm very lucky because I usually get male CEOs next to me. So I get a chance to ask them, so what's going on in your company? And I also found one, for any of you who are interested in doing research in investments, I find the best way to get the confidence and to get CEOs to open up to you is to offer them something in exchange. I found that as an analyst, you visit so many companies, and you yourself have to figure out the competitive edge that different companies have. And once you have figured that out and you go to visit the different companies in that industry, instead of always grilling the CEO with the same questions that everyone asks him and he's so bored, you ask a few basic questions just to get a sense of the man or woman. And then you say, I've just had the fun of visiting a number of other companies in your space, and I've sort of made these observations. And immediately his ears perk up, and all of a sudden, he's really interested in talking to you. As opposed to being really bored because you're another analyst taking his time, he's getting information from you. And it's information that is already filtered through someone who understands the industry, who already understands him, and is telling him how his competitors are trying to beat him, and you become value added to him. So always think how you can be value added, whether you're talking to a company, whether you're talking to a client. I think for clients, I always felt what was my competitive edge was that I really cared about my clients. And I think that was one of the reasons I started my own firm. I really felt that in many Wall Street firms, it was all about the bottom line and making money, maximizing the yield from each client. And I absolutely thought that was the wrong way to build a long-term business. And I found that I was often used as the person who was the turnaround artist in my firm. When portfolio manager was about to get fired by his client, they say, Lulu, can you go visit this client and see if you can figure out what it is we can do to save the account? And I really enjoyed it because I was good at listening. And the worst thing in this world of egos is for a portfolio manager who's very smart, but is having a bad year. And he gets called in by the client. And instead of telling the client, I did a really bad job for you, I understand why it went wrong, I'm going to fix it for you. I'm really committed to fixing it for you. You get a portfolio manager who gets defensive and says, well, I gave you 5 good years. Why are you complaining after this one bad year? That is death, the kiss of death for any portfolio manager. No client wants you in that room after that. You have to go in hat in hand and just say, we did a really bad job for you. We're going to fix it for you. I'm committed to it. And it really works because when you're sincere, you're humble, and you admit a mistake, and you are committed to recovering for the client, there are very few clients that will fire you on that. So
We'll take one last question before we continue.
Hi, Lulu. Thank you for sharing. Andrew Yuan, CBS 22 here. Stella, you did such an amazing job being a moderator. So this question is actually about life. So Lulu, can you share an example? How did you overcome the biggest challenge in your life? Because I think most people here, we are at the early year of the career. So I think it's better to be prepared as the challenge and the dark time, over the long term. So I just wanted to listen to you to give us some valuable life advice. Thank you.
thank you. I think if I were to tell my 20-year-old self what I would do differently, I would focus on the very point that I thought was my strength. My strength was my curiosity, but that also got me stretched too thin. And if I were to do things all over again, I would focus my time, my attention more. I think when you're very curious, you often can allow portfolio to proliferate. And only now in my old age, I'm learning to really be disciplined, to focus on your very best ideas and let them run for you. So that's one thing. So great to be curious, but you have to really focus yourself and where you place your bets investment-wise. And career-wise, same thing, a life lesson. There are so many things that you want to do. You have to really focus again. Every December, I always tell my husband, okay, my resolution for next year, I'm going to focus more. I'm going to not belong to so many boards. I'm not going to do so many events. I'm going to focus. And of course, my curiosity gets me involved, and I end up doing too much. So I think January 2024, I'm really going to take my own advice. But I would tell you now, focus more, because life is so full. And we live in such exciting times. There's so many opportunities to pursue professionally, personally, but I think you'll find it works out better professionally and personally if you try to really focus a bit more and go deeper.
Awesome. Then next, I would like to pivot a little bit to what my favorite topic today is technology. We all know that nowadays it's the ever-growing technology market is super fun with OpenAI, with ChatGPT and everything. From your experience, what do you think the technology involvement will affect family office operation, and what do you think are some of the key considerations family office should pay attention to in this ever-changing market?
Right. I think the rapid expansion of technology, particularly in generative AI, is going to make information so readily available. And so therefore, the emphasis I put on transparency in any corporate form, whether it's a family office or the largest corporation, transparency has to be part of your culture and your business practice. And I think it needs to be part of culture, because some companies still like to really manage the information flow to not only to their employees, but to their customers and to their clients. But I think it's you can't fudge things anymore. When a client asks you something like, why were you in this particular sector and not that sector or whatever, you can't just say, well, make up something that's really not, because they can figure it out very quickly. And also, I think consultants are going to have incredible tools at their resources to add to their analysis. So you really can't fudge things. You have to be absolutely straight with your clients. If you have a bad year, you need to tell them before they even find out through Chat GPT, because they're going to find out anyway. So I think it enforces the good idea of being very transparent. I also think, though, it's going to make it a lot of fun, because whether you're a marketing person or you're a client person, your communication to your clients, if you're in communication, if you're able to analyze market trends, trends in consumption patterns, it's all available. It's very quick, and you can make decisions quite quickly. And so in a situation where you really need to be transparent, you can't just go and give a lot of BS to your production team or your marketing team. They can have all the information anyway. So I really do think you need to be very quick on your feet, very transparent, and use the rapid access to information with the team so the team can decide together. I think it's going to help actually encourage teamwork versus being more siloed.
Certainly, those are really good points. I guess on the other side, do you see those technology will take over any jobs in the finance industry?
I think the more mundane jobs, absolutely. Absolutely. I do think, though, if we're here at Columbia and we learn to really be exceptional thinkers and out-of-the-box thinkers and question the world in different ways. And I think I'm very pleased with what COSIS is doing with the lining us, Columbia, the business school, with the School of Engineering, Medicine, SEPA. I think it's making us much broader. So when we emerge from Columbia Business School, we're not siloed, because the world is no longer siloed. Every silo is breaking down. So we need to be able to work in a world that is going to be very free-flowing across all silos. And ChatGPT is going to make that even more so. So when you're here and you have a chance, take one course that you really think you may not be good in, take one course that you really have no idea what it's all about, and stretch yourself a bit. And you'll be surprised how much you will have learned from it.
Amazing, very well said. I think that's really good advice. We have a lot of good class nowadays, and even more, the program is trying to give us more options to choose from, especially on the private equity program. Then I guess lastly, what advice would you give to our aspiring students here who are looking to pursue a career in investment management, and especially those who are aiming to, manage their own fund or start a family office in the near future?
I think it's all really the same building blocks. Really, I think if you, I end up running my own firm, but there are people who are very happy having an important role in a firm that is growing in a much larger fashion. And then most of us, those of us who've had a really wonderful career in the investment world, we have the luxury of then starting our own family offices. And that's the ultimate in an investment career, because it's so much fun running your own money. You don't have to, you can take your own timeline. When I retired my clients, fortunately just before the financial crisis, I farmed out some of our funds to outside managers, but I kept a pool for myself. And I measure myself every quarter against all my outside managers, and I really keep my feet to the fire. If I have a bad quarter, I understand what happened, and I can explain to myself as the client what happened. And that's very important. It's a good kind of a exercise to keep yourself into, even if you move out of money for other people. And I think it's just, you stay curious, because the world is changing. And what is value today can be growth tomorrow. What's growth today can be value tomorrow. What can be a commodity company because of new technology becomes a real value-added product area. So, and if you can catch these trends early on, you'll have great opportunities to make money. And I think a world that is full of surprises can be exhausting, but it is the kind of world you want to be in if you're an investor.
Maybe that's very well said. Any question from the audience?
Hey Lulu, thanks for having me. So basically, a lot of students ask about question, career, whatever. So right now, I'm actually running a family office in Hong Kong, and before I'm actually working in the institution like growth equity at a mega fund, and also my family do arts. Like we're a big, arts family, so we finish like Art Basel, Federal Asia in Hong Kong. So trying to understand how you manage the time between, doing arts and also investments, and also how you see the, correlation between investment and also some certain type of arts.
I'm sorry, the last part was what?
How you see the correlation between doing the investments on the public equity, private equity, even so for collecting arts, also art management. Thank you.
Well, I think that's the ultimate question. How can you find time to do everything you want to do, but do it well? And I was talking about trying to narrow and be more focused, but I feel so lucky. I was able to achieve great success in the investment world. Felt I had enough funds to support my my lifestyle, but also my philanthropy. And when I got to that point, I decided to retire my clients. And then I dedicated one fund I ran myself to fund philanthropies. So in a way, I had a client. My client was my philanthropies. And if I did well and I took risk for it or did not take risk, my philanthropies would benefit. So I really felt that I was able to do what I loved to do, didn't have to give it up, but I didn't have to report to clients. But I knew that what I was producing in my investments was going to take care of my philanthropy. So in a way, it was the integration I talked about. Life works well for me if I integrate everything. If I integrate my love of investing with philanthropy, I integrate my love of my family with my work. And if you can find ways in which you can integrate things that you enjoy, you can find an ability to have enough time for more things than you think you might have time for. Does that make sense? Because I think to be truly philanthropic, you can't just give money. You have to give your expertise. And so for every board I serve on, there has to be a very deep interest in terms of the mission of the institution, whether for the Met, it's art. Well, my husband and I are art collectors, and for Rockefeller University, which is a fabulous brain trust in biomedicine, I've always been interested in that. So it's something that I would do if I weren't but I would do even if I didn't have my own scientific training. But I'm curious to see how it improves human life. But I also learned a lot about science and genetic engineering. So you learn a lot from the philanthropies that you help with as well. So in many ways, you learn at the same time that you're giving to them. And then whatever expertise you develop as an investor, you can help the investment committee on that particular philanthropy. So in many ways, you can integrate what you give and what you get. Does that make sense? I only invest the part of my family's investments where I feel I have the time to give to it, and where I'm well versed. I don't have to give a lot of time. I wouldn't be running real estate or private equity for my family because it's not my area of expertise. But I think I'm value added to the public equity side of it. So that I can do without too much extra time. But at the same time, I think the charities that you give your time to, if you bring a real passion and an understanding of science or of art or of policy, like Asia Society, you really can bring tremendous value to the philanthropy in addition to the checks you can write. So again, everything has a double purpose.
Thank you, Lulu. I'm Grace from China. So my question is, what do you think of the untripod trade in Mexico? Because now, as the geopolitics instability, the trade between U.S. and China was heavily impacted by the relationship. So, do you think it's a good opportunity for Chinese companies to, transport the products to Mexico first, like the untripod trade in Mexico?
Well, I think the unfortunate hostilities between U.S. and China is changing the entire economics of the world. Global trade is changing. We're hearing about reshoring, friendshoring, new alliances are being drawn. Old trading partners are no longer trading together. New axes of power are being developed, and Mexico has come into play because it's very near to the U.S., which is a very big end market. At the same time, there's still going to be industries where China will continue to be very successful, still be a low-cost producer. I think what China's doing, though, is worrisome in that despite the fact that they still have very creative people, they still have a good labor source, even though it's now priced higher than Vietnam or Mexico. I think China's, she's replacing economics and business theory with political ideology really puts China's economy at risk. He still has some very good economic advisors, but many of them are beginning to age out. I think Liu He was really a very wise Western-trained economics resource for Xi, but he's now retired because of age. But he does still have Xi's ear, and he can give him some advice. But Xi is really a zealot, and he has a great vision for China. And I think it's not a corrupt vision. It's a vision that he has held for a long time to replace the former power and influence that China had. And he wants to, and the word he uses all the time when he talks to the U.S. is respect. He wants respect from the U.S. And unfortunately, he's not been getting that. And until he can get past the ideology of competing with America, beating America, it's not going to be possible for quite a while. And he's going to actually suffer in some of the trade alliances he has. He may want to do alliances with either Vietnam or Mexico or Brazil. But I think the U.S. is now trying to, it wasn't trying to do that 2 years ago, but now it's really trying to contain what China can do. Because it has become a bit of a zero-sum game, which is not healthy for any two countries to be working together on a zero-sum. They should be working together on a best efforts basis. We know you're good, you know we're good. We're going to do the very best to be number one, and we're not going to sabotage you, but let the best man win. That should be the way geo-competition works, but unfortunately, ideology has really gotten in the way of that. He has to really, I'm hoping that he'll come around. I think a bad economic outlook in China may be the only way to really wake him up that you cannot run a country on ideology, on politics. It has to be based on economics.
Thank you, Lulu, for being here. You've briefly mentioned about silo, and I'm just wondering that what are some strategies that you would say to break the silo effect? And at the same time, what are some of the books that you recommend that resonates your values?
I'm sorry, you're talking about silos?
You've briefly mentioned about silo, and from like a Oriental background, lots of companies, they're quite siloed. So what are some of the strategies that you would decentralize that, or?
Are you talking about Asian-based companies?
Yes.
Actually, I think they've made good progress in terms of reaching out. Even some of the mega companies in China are realizing that that their growth now is more limited. China's GDP used to be 14%, and now then it got down to 7%. Now we're going to be 5% or less. So the opportunities to grow within China has certainly diminished. And you see the companies like Alibaba, Tencent, the old giants, they're really looking overseas to invest and use their technology and their products to tap into non-Chinese markets. So I think that's good. And also, they also realizing that sourcing is important. So whether it's supply chain or your end markets, many of the Chinese companies are big enough, are thinking about going outside of China. And the second part of your question after siloing was what? Oh, it's one of the books I'm reading? That you would recommend. Yes. Well, I have a pile of books this high. I read the New York Times Book Review every Sunday, and I always order on Amazon the books I want to read. And then I get through my 500th email, and I realize there's no time to read. But I buy books, and then I read a little bit, and then I give them to friends. I say, this is a really good book, and you should read it, and then you can tell me how it ends. But if you can tell me how we can control how email just dominates our lives, because you can virtually, I do emails almost every night to 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. So I hate to go to bed until I've finished it off. And then in the morning, from 7 o'clock on, it's starting because I have the overnight emails from Asia. And then California, obviously, is late in the day. But I don't, how do you all manage it? But I know with my younger friends, I text. So, but even texts get longer and longer if you're dealing with a very complicated issue. You have to really, and then it takes so long to text it out. How do you control back there? You have a solution? And what has it done for you?
It's just that it accelerates your email answering. I think there's some AI built into it that helps a lot.
One friend told me that never let a response be more than one sentence. And that's very good advice, but how you pursue it is really beyond me. And especially when you're dealing with, if you're dealing with facts, it's easy. Yes, no, 5%, 10%. But when you're running a company or you're running a board and you're dealing with persuading people to do something, and you have to really come across not pushy, you have to come across persuasive, you've got to line up your arguments. You can't do that in a one sentence. And I find it so much more difficult when you're operating at a higher level and you're really trying to win people's rationale and their hearts and their souls. But in that kind of communication has to be very nuanced and very, very careful and sensitive. And bots can't do it for you. You can try to train a bot to be diplomatic, but it can only do so much. But that is the problem. If anyone figures it out, you can sell it to me.
So we are at times, so unfortunately, cannot take any more questions. I know you're all very enthusiastic, wanting to talk to Lulu. But thank you so much, Lulu,